Dear friends, today I have with me Fr.James Thamburaj. Dear Father, thank you so much for your precious time. As we know, we are now in a critical condition with the tragic attack of COVID-19, or so-called coronavirus. I am here to ask you a few questions that our believers are asking. The first question is, how to keep the faith as churches shut their doors?
Yes, faith is kept not necessarily by going to churches which are buildings. In Latin, ecclesia, the church means in Latin ecclesia. Ecclesia means gathering of the people of God.
Okay.
Same way in Greek, synod. That word again is a gathering, coming together, people coming together. And in the early church, did they have buildings as churches? No. You see, immediately after the Pentecostal experience, the church was born on that day, but it started functioning. There was no churches. The first church in the history of the church was built by Constantine the Great in the 4th century. But the early Christians' faith was strong and deep. How? In Acts of the Apostles, chapter 2, 42 to 47, and in Acts of the Apostles, chapter 4, 32 to 35, we read how they were constant in prayer. They came together in homes, broke bread, listened to the teachings of the apostles, and they had everything in common. And they were of one mind and one heart. And they had not only table fellowship, but even ordinary fellowship. And none of them was wanting in anything. They did not allow anybody to beg. The community gathered together at homes was the church. Now, even Vatican II calls it domestic church. John Paul was very fond of that word and said we must encourage domestic churches. And even in Korea, North Korea for example, missionaries were not allowed. And it was the lay people who came from South Korea, who went from South Korea to North Korea, they kept the faith alive by gathering constantly in homes. So that was a real church. Because the crowd of believers increased, they needed huge buildings. It was fair enough to build churches, sure. But in times of crisis like this, like World War, Black Death, now coronavirus, Spanish flu, these kind of occasions, we may not be able to go to the church, what we call the buildings, but we can keep our faith alive by remaining at home and reading the Bible, reciting the rosary, and teaching the children the basics of faith. So we need not get alarmed that we are not able to go to the so-called church buildings.
Now, Father, I think I have one more question with regard to this. Will not the faithful feel guilty because they cannot attend any mass or services in the church?
Yeah, actually in religions like Jewish religion, Christianity and Islam, people easily get guilt feelings because these three religions actually say do and don'ts.
Okay.
What we call ritualistic religions. Take for example Buddhism or Hinduism. They would not feel guilt feelings if they don't go to the temple. Whenever they feel like worshipping the Lord, they will go to the temple. So by making a kind of apodictic statements, by making commandments, You make people guilty if they don't follow those rules and regulations.
Okay.
That's what Paul says. Law binds, law makes you slaves, whereas love liberates. So in these kind of situations, I think we should train our believers not to feel guilty. Because emergency situations, and we are not adoring such a God who is angry because we are not come to church on Sunday Mass. Therefore, it is true, they will feel, but they will get used to. When there is persecution, actually the faith becomes stronger than when there is no persecution. Because you go to church out of kind of duty or it's a custom to go to church. But when you are constrained, then you cling on to God. Then you start praying yourself, not depending on the clergy or church authorities.
Thank you, Father, for that answer.